My fiancée asked for a break after her parents called me worthless. I didn't beg. You're just not the kind of man Lauren deserves. Her dad said, so I withdrew my $22,500 from our wedding account and left her crying in credit card debt. 3 days later, she showed up at my job screaming that I'd ruined her life. I need to get this off my chest about what happened 3 weeks ago when my 4-year relationship imploded in the most entitled way possible. Throwaway. Because this got way bigger than I expected, and people in our social circle have been picking sides. Let me back up and explain how we got here. I'm Jeremy, 32 project manager at a mid-sized tech company in Denver. Lauren is 29, works in marketing for her dad's commercial real estate company. We met through mutual friends 4 years ago, and honestly, things were great for the first 2 years. She was funny, ambitious, and we had this easy chemistry that just worked. The problem started when we got engaged 18 months ago. That's when her parents, Robert and Patricia Callahan, really started inserting themselves into our relationship. They own several commercial properties around Denver and consider themselves old money, even though Robert's dad was literally a plumber who got lucky with some land deals in the 70s. But they act like they're Denver royalty or something. From day one of our engagement, Patricia made little comments about my background. My dad drives trucks. My mom works at an elementary school. I went to state college on student loans, not some private university. I make decent money now, around $75,000 a year, but apparently that's peasant wages to them. She'd say things like, oh, Jeremy, that's such an interesting perspective. Whenever I'd share an opinion, like I was some curiosity they were studying, Robert was more direct. He'd ask pointed questions about my 5-year financial plan and whether I really thought I could provide the lifestyle Lauren is accustomed to. The thing is, Lauren never acted entitled about money when we were alone. She paid for her own stuff. We split dates fairly, and she seemed genuinely happy with our modest apartment and normal couple activities. But around her parents, she'd get this weird, passive energy, like she'd mention wanting to go somewhere expensive for vacation, and when I'd suggest we save up for it, she'd just shrug and say, maybe daddy can help. It made my stomach turn, but I figured it was just family dynamics, and she'd grow out of it once we were married. The wedding planning is where everything went sideways. We'd agreed on a budget of $45,000 total. I was contributing $22,500. She was putting in the same amount, mostly from money she'd saved, and some graduation gift money from her grandparents. It felt fair and reasonable for a nice but not crazy expensive wedding, except Patricia kept pushing for upgrades. Surely you want Lauren to have real flowers, not those awful artificial ones. The photography package you chose is so basic. What will people think when they see the pictures? Every conversation became about how we were being cheap and how embarrassing it would be for their family. Lauren started getting stressed about it, but instead of standing up to her mom, she'd come to me asking if we could find room in the budget for the upgrades. When I'd point out that we'd already committed our savings, she'd get this hurt, look like I was being unreasonable. It's just money, Jeremy. This is supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. That should have been my first real warning sign, but I loved her and figured we'd work it out. The breaking point happened 6 weeks ago. We were at Sunday dinner at her parents' house, which had become this weekly obligation that I honestly dreaded. Robert was going on about some business deal. He'd closed, really emphasizing how much money was involved, when Patricia turned to me with this fake, sweet smile. Jeremy, Lauren tells us you're concerned about the wedding budget. We were thinking, since this is such an important day for our family, maybe we should just handle the expenses ourselves. That way, you don't have to worry about providing for our daughter. The way she said providing for our daughter made my blood boil, but I kept my voice level. That's generous of you to offer, but Lauren and I want to pay for our own wedding. Robert jumped in then. Son, there's no shame in accepting help when you're in over your head. Lauren's always been used to a certain standard of living. I looked at Lauren, expecting her to say something, anything, to support me. Instead, she just stared at her plate and mumbled, maybe we should consider it. That's when Patricia went for the kill. You know, Jeremy, we've been talking and we're just not sure you're the right fit for Lauren's future. She has so much potential, and we'd hate to see her held back by someone who can't match her ambition. The audacity of this woman was unbelievable. I'm sitting at their dinner table, being told I'm not good enough for their daughter, and Lauren says absolutely nothing to defend me. I felt sick to my stomach, but I just said, I think we should go home now. Lauren barely spoke to me on the drive home. When I tried to talk about what happened, she said I was being too sensitive and that her parents were just looking out for her. That was the first time I seriously wondered if we were compatible long term. Things got worse over the next few weeks. Lauren started having these long phone conversations with her mom that she'd take in the other room. She'd come back acting distant and distracted. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd say nothing, but then make little comments about how stressed she was about money or how maybe we were rushing into marriage. The final straw came 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday. I came home from work expecting to find Lauren there, but she wasn't. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter that just said, "We need to talk when you get home." I'm at my parents'. My stomach dropped when I read that. I knew something big was coming, but I wasn't prepared for what happened when she finally came home, around 9 p.m. She walked in looking like she'd been crying, but also weirdly determined. She sat down across from me at our little dining table and said, "Jeremy, I think we need to take a break." I just stared at her. A break. What does that mean? I think we're moving too fast with the wedding. My parents think I should take some time to really consider if this is what I want. Your parents think? I repeated. What do you think, Lauren? She couldn't even look me in the eye. I think they might be right. Maybe we're just too different. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but I wasn't going to beg her to stay if this is how she really felt. Okay, I said, if that's what you want. She looked surprised that I didn't fight her on it. I'll stay at my parents' for a while. We can figure out the apartment and everything later. What about the wedding? I asked. That's when she got this guilty look on her face. Actually, I already called the venue yesterday and put everything on hold. The audacity hit me like a truck. She'd made this massive decision about our wedding before even talking to me about taking a break. You canceled our venue without telling me. I didn't cancel it. I just put it on hold. We can always. No, I said. I was done at that point. Completely done. If you're having doubts serious enough to cancel our wedding venue behind my back, then we're not taking a break. We're breaking up. She started crying, then saying I was being too harsh and that she just needed time to think. But I could see the truth now. This wasn't about her needing space. This was about her parents finally convincing her that I wasn't worth settling for. The next morning, after she'd packed a bag and left for her parents' house, I drove to the bank and withdrew my $22,500 from our joint wedding account. It was my money that I'd saved specifically for our wedding, and if there wasn't going to be a wedding, I wasn't leaving it sitting there. I also called our wedding planner and told her to cancel everything that hadn't already been paid for. The venue, the caterer, the flowers, everything. Some of it we lost deposits on, but most of the big expenses hadn't been paid yet since the wedding was still 4 months away. I figured that was the end of it. Clean break. We'd both move on with our lives. I was so wrong. 2 days later, Lauren showed up at my apartment, completely hysterical. She discovered that I'd withdrawn my money, and that most of the wedding vendors had been canceled. How could you do this to me? She screamed. I said I needed a break, not that we were over. You canceled our venue behind my back. I reminded her, and you said your parents were right that we're too different. I was confused. I just needed time to think. But here's the thing that really got to me. She wasn't upset that our relationship was over. She was upset about the money and the canceled vendors. She kept saying things like, "Do you know how embarrassing this is?" And "What am I supposed to tell people?" Not once did she say she missed me or that she'd made a mistake. It was all about the inconvenience I'd caused her. That's when Patricia called me. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious what she had to say. "Jeremy, this is completely unacceptable," she said without even saying hello. "You've left Lauren in an impossible situation." "What situation is that?" I asked. She put deposits down on several vendors with her credit cards expecting to be reimbursed from the wedding account. Now that money is gone, and she's responsible for thousands of dollars in charges. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Patricia, Lauren broke up with me. She doesn't get to keep my wedding money when there's no wedding. It wasn't your money, it was wedding money. You had a responsibility to discuss this with her before acting so rashly. The nerve of this woman was incredible. No, it was my money that I saved for our wedding. When she decided she needed a break from our relationship, she gave up any claim to that money. You're being vindictive and cruel. Laura is heartbroken. Lauren is upset about money, not about losing me. There's a difference. Patricia got really nasty then. This just proves we were right about you. You're selfish and immature. Lauren deserves so much better. I hung up on her. Over the next week, I got calls and texts from Lauren, her parents, and even some of her friends, all telling me I was being unreasonable and that I needed to make this right. Apparently, Lauren had put about $8,000 on her credit cards for various wedding expenses, thinking she'd pay them off with money from our joint account. The thing is, I never agreed to those expenses. She made those decisions on her own, probably encouraged by her parents' constant pushing for upgrades. Now that the money wasn't available, she was stuck with the debt. I almost felt bad for her until I remembered that she'd canceled our venue without talking to me first. If she could make unilateral decisions about our wedding, so could I. Lauren kept calling and texting, alternating between begging me to reconsider and accusing me of being vindictive. One text said, "I never thought you could be so cruel." Another said, "Please, I made a mistake. We can work this out." But it was too late. I could see clearly now that she'd never really stood up for me or our relationship. When push came to shove, she chose her parents' opinions over building a life with me. The break wasn't about needing time to think. It was about testing whether I'd fight for her or just accept being dismissed. Well, I wasn't going to fight for someone who didn't fight for me. Update. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Since my post 3 days ago, things have definitely escalated in ways I didn't expect. Lauren has been trying everything to get me to give her money to pay off her credit cards. She showed up at my work last Tuesday, which was mortifying because she was crying in the lobby, and my coworkers could see everything. Security had to escort her out when she wouldn't leave. She keeps insisting that I owe her because we were planning a life together, and she made financial decisions based on that expectation. But here's what she's not telling her. Flying monkeys who keep messaging me. She charged a bunch of stuff that I never agreed to in the first place. I found out from our wedding planner that Lauren had upgraded our photography package, changed the flowers to some premium option, and put down deposits on a string quartet and upgraded catering menu, all stuff we'd specifically decided was too expensive for our budget. She did all this in the 2 weeks before, asking for the break, probably knowing she was going to end things but wanting to go out with a bang. The kicker is that she told her parents I'd agreed to all the upgrades, so when they found out I withdrew the money, they felt justified in calling me vindictive because they thought I was backing out of commitments I'd made. Patricia actually called my mom to complain about me, which did not go the way she expected. My mom, bless her heart, listened to Patricia rant about how I was being unreasonable and then said, "Ma'am, sounds like your daughter learned some expensive lessons about making assumptions. Jeremy's a good man who deserves better than being treated like a backup plan." Apparently, Patricia was speechless. I've been getting messages from Lauren's friends saying I should help her with the debt because it's the right thing to do, and you loved her once. But honestly, at this point, I'm just documenting everything because her behavior is getting more unhinged. She created a fake social media account to follow me, and then screenshotted a picture I posted of myself at a bar with some work friends. She sent it to several people claiming I was celebrating ruining her life and that it proved I never really loved her. The reality is I was having one beer after work on a Friday with colleagues, something I've done maybe 5 times in the 4 years we were together. But in her mind, me not being visibly miserable means I'm the bad guy. Her dad, Robert, actually called me yesterday and tried a different approach. He was all friendly and reasonable, saying he understood why I was hurt, but that 2 wrongs don't make a right. He offered to pay me back the $22,500 if I would give Lauren the same amount to clear her debt. I told him that if he wanted to help his daughter with her poor financial decisions, that was between him and her, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. Jeremy, be the bigger man here. Lauren's learned her lesson. What lesson is that, Robert? That she shouldn't have listened to us about taking a break. She realizes now that she wants to be with you, and there it was. Lauren didn't have some great revelation about loving me. She just realized that being single and in debt was harder than being with someone her parents disapproved of. I told Robert I wasn't interested in being anyone's consolation prize, and that Lauren had made her choice when she prioritized her parents' opinions over our relationship. People keep asking about the specific charges Lauren racked up. According to our wedding planner, she put down $1,500 for upgraded flowers, $2,000 for the photography, upgrade $1,200 for a string quartet we'd never discussed, and about $3,000 for premium catering options. That's almost $8,000 in upgrades to a wedding she was planning to put on hold. The math doesn't add up unless she was planning to end things but wanted one last expensive tantrum first. I've been staying strong on maintaining my boundaries, which apparently makes me heartless according to Lauren's sister who called me yesterday. But I'm sleeping better now than I have in months which tells me everything I need to know about this decision. Will update if the crazy escalates further. Final update. This will be my last post about the situation because I'm ready to move on completely. It's been 2.5 weeks since my last update, and the dust has finally settled. Lauren is now living back at her parents' house full time, and from what I've heard through mutual friends, she's working extra hours at her dad's company to pay off the credit card debt. Robert and Patricia ended up not helping her financially, which honestly surprised me. Apparently there was a big family blowout when they found out about all the secret wedding upgrades Lauren had made. According to my friend Mike, who's still in touch with Lauren's cousin Patricia, was furious when she realized Lauren had been lying about my involvement in those decisions. Turns out, even her own parents have limits when it comes to enabling her entitled behavior. Lauren made one final attempt to contact me about a week ago. She sent a long email apologizing for everything and asking if we could meet for coffee to get closure. The email was actually pretty mature and took responsibility for her actions, which was progress, but it also made it clear that she still didn't understand the fundamental issue. She kept framing the whole thing as a mistake she made under pressure from her parents, like she was a victim of their manipulation, rather than someone who chose to prioritize their approval over our relationship. Even her apology centered around how sorry she was that things got so complicated, rather than acknowledging that she broke my trust by making major decisions behind my back. I wrote back a brief response wishing her well, but explained that I wasn't interested in meeting up. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, and honestly, I don't want to rebuild this one. The biggest revelation for me through all this has been realizing how many red flags I'd been ignoring. Lauren's inability to stand up to her parents wasn't just about wedding planning. Looking back, she'd always deferred to their opinions on everything from where we should live to what kind of car I should drive. I told myself it was just family closeness, but really it was her, never learning to make independent decisions. I'm actually grateful this happened before we got married. Imagine dealing with this dynamic for years, while trying to build a life together, have kids, make major decisions. Every disagreement would have involved Patricia's opinions and Robert's financial lectures. No thanks. As for my current situation, I'm doing really well. I used some of the money I'd saved for the wedding to take a solo vacation to Iceland last week, which was incredible. I'm also looking at buying a small house, now that I'm not planning to combine finances with someone who can't set boundaries with her family. A few people have asked if I feel bad about Lauren being in debt. Honestly, no. She made adult decisions, and she gets to deal with adult consequences. I'm not responsible for managing the financial fallout of someone else's poor choices, especially someone who broke up with me. To those saying I went too far by withdrawing my money, I disagree completely. That money represented 2 years of careful saving and budgeting on my part. When Lauren decided she needed a break from our relationship, she gave up any claim to shared resources. I didn't take anything that belonged to her, I just protected what was mine. The whole experience taught me that love isn't enough if the other person won't choose you when it matters. Lauren had multiple opportunities to stand up for our relationship and chose not to. That's not a mistake or a moment of weakness. That's a fundamental incompatibility. Thanks, Reddit, for all the support and perspective. Sometimes standing up for yourself feels selfish in the moment, but looking back, it was exactly what I needed to do. I'm excited about what comes next instead of dreading family dinners and managing someone else's parents' opinions about my worthiness. Life's too short to spend it with people who see you as a consolation prize.